Representative Meadows, the leader of the House Freedom Caucus, Mr. President, and Democratic Jim Langevin introduced companion legislation in the House. The leader of the Freedom Caucus. Why would you think that they are interested in this bill that I'm doing with Lindsey Graham? Well, because they believe in this idea that states should be able to have their own elections and that it shouldn't be federalized. They believe that we should have safe and secure elections. There is strong bipartisan support for this effort outside the halls of Congress as well. Dozens of former Republican national security officials are pushing for the Senate to pass this amendment. They have written op-eds, called their representatives, and worked to inform the public about the need to take action now. Michael Chertoff, who served as Secretary of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush, published a piece this month in the Wall Street Journal calling on Congress to take action. He noted that our amendment, the Klobuchar-Graham amendment, would address the cybersecurity challenge in a way that is, quote, fiscally responsible, respectful of states' policymaking powers, and proactive in dealing with the most pressing vulnerabilities. Bruce Fein, a former Reagan Department of Justice official, said the amendment would enormously strengthen defenses against cyber attacks that could compromise the integrity of elections in the United States and undermine legitimacy of government. A bipartisan group of former national security officials sent a letter to Senate leadership pushing for a vote on this amendment. They noted that attacks on U.S. voting systems threaten the most basic underpinnings of American self-government, and these attacks are growing in sophistication and scale. States administer elections, and if you talk to a local election official, and I have done this throughout my state, you will find out that they are adamant about protecting states' rights in this area. Well, guess what? No surprise, we have their support too. Of 10 secretaries of state sent a letter urging the Senate to pass this amendment. They want this amendment passed because it would provide vital resources to states to support growing security demands of our nation's election infrastructure. The National Association of Counties, a group that unites America's 3,069 counties, these are county governments, big and small, that serve people on the grassroots level, that know what it means to be having people sitting at those election booths, doing their job for little pay, just making sure for the reason that we have free American elections. They support this too. They need resources and cyber expertise, and they need them now. Our decentralized election system is both a strength and a weakness. It's a strength because we have multiple systems that all of our information, so it isn't in one place, right? So if there's a hack in Ohio, maybe you don't have the hack in Minnesota. If there's a hack in one state, in one city, maybe you don't have it in another. But we don't want to have a hack anywhere. American elections are increasingly an easy target because, on the other hand, many local election systems are using election technology that is completely outdated. 43 states rely on electronic voting or tabulation systems that are at least 10 years old. Think about it. So we want to have this decentralized elections. That's what we want. But we just simply have to make sure that our states, when they're voting in both state and federal elections, for senator, for governor, for their local mayor, for their school board, that their election equipment is safe and secure. And that's where we come in. We don't run their local elections. And I think a lot of Americans wouldn't want us to run their local elections. But what we do is make sure that elections are safe. Because those hackers over there in Russia or wherever they are, or the 1,000 people that were operating in that warehouse to try to influence our election, they don't know jurisdictional boundaries, right? They'll commit crimes across state lines, across county lines, across federal lines, across international lines. They don't care. So we have to allow our state and local elections and the people that run it to be as sophisticated as the Russians that are trying to break our backs. That is what this is about. So the fact that we have so many security experts supporting this, so many local election people supporting this, the fact that Senator McCain is more than happy to have this included in his bill because he sees it as a national security issue. How can one senator stand up and say no to this amendment? Well, that's what the American people should be asking. Local election officials are the place to start. They are passionate about keeping the federal government out of state elections, and they support our election and our amendment because it strikes the balance that our federal system demands when it comes to the administration of elections. Despite the strong bipartisan support for this amendment, again, I ask the people or person that is blocking this vote to allow this bill to go forward. I am simply outraged by this. I think this is an embarrassment to this body if we allow this to continue. Republican and Democratic senators support this amendment. Cybersecurity experts support this amendment. Republican and Democratic former major national security officials support this amendment. The Freedom Caucus supports this amendment. This is a bipartisan amendment in the House. So why is it being blocked? I actually can't tell you. One of those things where someone says, oh, it isn't worth putting millions of dollars into this. No, when you look at all the money we're spending on other forms of defense, this is just dwarfed by that. No one can actually, in good faith, say that that's the reason. And they're actually not saying that that is the reason. They are giving me no reason. So I think they need to come out and tell us why they are against securing our elections. I think the American people deserve an answer for that. The integrity of our election system is the cornerstone of our democracy. The freedom to choose our leaders and know with full confidence that those leaders were chosen in free and fair elections, that is something that Americans have fought and died for since our country was founded, right? That's why our country came into existence, because we didn't want to have another country control our citizens' economy. We didn't want them to control where they went to school. My relatives came over from Slovenia and other places because they wanted to be able to choose where their kids went to school. That's the freedom of voting, and that's what this amendment is about. Members standing in the way of this bipartisan amendment to protect our election infrastructure are literally committing malpractice on our Constitution. They will have to explain to the American people why, and to the Freedom Caucus, and to all the supporters that we have across the aisle, why they didn't just stand, why they didn't just do something, why they stood idly by and ignored the warnings of our intelligence officials. Because you know what? They're not going to actually have to next summer be able to say, oh, I guess I was wrong, I'll do something now. It will be too late now. This is the time to authorize this and then to get the money in place by the end of the year. And it is the only legal way we can do this. When it comes to our election infrastructure, we are only as strong as our weakest link. A threat to one county, to one city, to one state's election infrastructure is an assault on our entire system because it fundamentally threatens the very foundation of our political system. We must be a united front in fighting against those who interfere with our democracy, and we must do everything in our power to prevent foreign interference from ever happening again. In the 21st century, our adversaries will continue to use cyber warfare. Everyone knows that. Anyone that's had an account at a store hacked into, anyone that's had someone get into their account with spam or send them some fake address or a fake link, everyone knows that this is happening. In the 21st century, our adversaries will use cyber warfare, and we need to be prepared to defend our networks against this growing threat to our democracy, especially the most fundamental part of our political system, our elections. Our attitude must be to roll up our sleeves to get this done. And whoever is blocking this bill better come forward and just explain why. Because the American people are going to demand an answer now, but they're really going to demand an answer when things go bad. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield.